The great hall of the imperial palace stretched farther than anyone could see. High above, crystal chandeliers glimmered, casting light over thousands of gathered species. The air was heavy with tension and fear, yet some wore expressions of pride and arrogance. At the center of it all sat Emperor Xyler, a figure of cold power. His throne floated above the floor, held by invisible energy fields, and his piercing eyes scanned the crowd below. "Humans," he began, his voice echoing like thunder, "are weak, fragile, easily crushed, and yet they call themselves a spacefaring species." His words dripped with mockery. "The galaxy laughs at them. Every colony they claim, every fleet they build, is nothing but a childish illusion." The gathered officials and alien lords nodded in agreement. Some chuckled softly, others openly laughed. Among them were the Emperor's elite guards, known as the Obsidian Sentinels. They were sworn to loyalty, trained for centuries, and feared by every species in the galaxy. Yet, even among their disciplined ranks, a quiet unease lingered. The Emperor continued, his voice rising with disdain. "I have sent scouts. I have watched their ships. I have observed their battles. And what have I seen? Weakness, chaos, ineptitude, nothing more." He leaned forward slightly, his cloak fluttering as if alive. "They are powerless. They will never threaten the Empire. Not now, not ever." A murmur went through the hall. Some species, long oppressed by the Emperor, nodded eagerly. Others, secretly curious, dared not question him. The humans had never truly confronted the Empire before. To most, they were an amusing sideshow, a species that spoke loudly but achieved little. Far from the Imperial capital, orbiting a blue and green planet, human scouts detected the Imperial broadcast. It was meant to humiliate them, to declare their weakness to the galaxy. But to the humans, it was a spark. Fleet Admiral Lyra Oren watched the message replay on her command bridge. "They underestimate us," she said quietly, eyes fixed on the stars. As always, her crew, a mixture of veterans and young cadets, shared a tense but determined silence. The human fleet was small, but it was disciplined. Their ships were old by some standards, but their systems were efficient, their crews trained to adapt, and their weapons deadly when used strategically. Back in the Imperial Hall, the Emperor rose from his throne. "I will make an example," he declared. "Let the galaxy witness the fate of the humans. Let them see what happens when they defy the true power of the Empire." A signal flashed, and a live feed appeared on the massive crystalline screen behind him. The screen showed a human colony on a distant planet. Its cities were modest but organized. Factories hummed with activity. Ships launched quietly from orbital docks, and on the surface humans drilled, trained, and prepared. The audience laughed. "Pathetic," one alien lord muttered. "They barely manage themselves, and yet they hope to face the Empire?" Even the Obsidian Sentinels remained still, their expressions unreadable. But among them, one guard tilted his head slightly, his eyes narrowing. He had been trained to notice details others missed. Something about the colony, the movements, the organization, it did not match the Emperor's words. The Emperor clapped his hands slowly, a cruel smile on his lips. "Prepare the fleets," he commanded. "Send a demonstration. Show them what happens to those who dare challenge us. Let the humans understand their place. Let them know they are powerless." Orders rippled through the hall, carried by subspace communicators to fleets across nearby systems. The humans, according to the Emperor, would not survive the first wave. His confidence was absolute. His arrogance was infinite. And yet, as the Obsidian Sentinel watched the screen, a strange thought flickered in his mind. Could it be that the Emperor was wrong? Could it be that humans were not as weak as everyone believed? The thought was dangerous, almost heretical, but it would not leave him. Meanwhile, on Earth, the Human Council of Defense convened in a hidden bunker deep beneath the surface. Screens displayed the Imperial broadcast. Every eye in the room was locked on the image of the arrogant Emperor, laughing and dismissing their entire species. General Kale Rhine, a veteran of countless skirmishes along the galactic frontier, clenched his fists. "He has no idea," he said through gritted teeth. "No idea what humans can do." Admiral Oren's voice was calm, steady, yet carried the weight of unspoken determination. "Then we show him," she replied. "We don't just defend ourselves. We make them rethink everything they think about humanity." In the Imperial Hall, the Emperor turned back to his audience, waving his hand dismissively. "Prepare for the display of power. Let the humans witness the futility of their existence." The Obsidian Sentinel watched him, silently questioning. Every movement of the Emperor was precise, calculated to intimidate. But there was a pattern, a subtle arrogance that left openings. And the humans, small, underestimated, and seemingly weak, were already beginning to exploit those openings, even unknowingly. The first reports from distant scouts began to arrive. The Emperor barely glanced at them, confident in his superiority. But the Sentinel noticed something. The humans were coordinating. Their fleets were moving with precision. Their colonies were mobilizing in ways that did not fit the pattern of a weak species. Something was coming. Something the Emperor could not see. The hall was alive with speculation. Some whispered among themselves, questioning what the humans might be capable of. Others remained loyal, too afraid to doubt. The Emperor's eyes swept across them, sharp and accusing. "Do not falter," he said. "The humans are nothing. Remember this, power belongs to those who wield it with certainty." And in the darkness of the hall, where the lights could not reach, the Obsidian Sentinel made a silent vow. If the humans truly were as dangerous as the pattern suggested, he would witness it, and perhaps, just perhaps, he would act when the time came. Meanwhile, in orbit around the distant human colony, Admiral Oren's flagship prepared for maneuvers that no one in the Imperial Hall could predict. Every sensor, every ship, every human aboard was ready. They were small. They were few. But they were not powerless. The Emperor's laugh echoed through the great hall, confident, unshakable. "They are children playing at war," he said, "and we shall teach them their place." Far across the galaxy, humans readied themselves in silence, their hearts steady, their resolve unbroken. The Emperor believed he knew their limits. He believed he understood them. He was wrong. As the sun set over the human colony, casting long shadows across the plains and cities, the first signs of a quiet storm began to stir in orbit. A storm that no emperor, no matter how powerful, could ignore forever. And so the galaxy waited. The Emperor declared humans powerless, but the seeds of disbelief had already been sown. In the coming days, the arrogance of one ruler would meet the determination of an entire species, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Obsidian Sentinel known as Kalen stood at the edge of the Imperial Hall, his armor black as midnight and his eyes sharp as a predator's. The Emperor's voice had faded into the hum of the hall, but Kalen could not shake the image of the human colony. Something about it lingered in his mind like a shadow refusing to leave. The Emperor had called humans powerless, weak, nothing more than fragile children of a primitive species. Yet what Kalen had seen on the live feed did not match those words. He turned slightly, glancing at the other sentinels. Their faces were masks of obedience, emotionless and loyal. None of them questioned the Emperor's judgment. They did not see what he saw. The organization of the human colony, the way they moved, the precision of their drills and preparations. There was a rhythm, a quiet efficiency that no powerless species could maintain. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, yet it was there, and it gnawed at him. Kalen's mind raced as he replayed the Emperor's decree in his memory. Weak, fragile, easily crushed. Those words had echoed through the hall like a drum, but Kalen's gut told him the truth was different. Humans were not weak. They were disciplined, careful, and cunning. Their weapons were small but effective. Their numbers limited, but adaptable. And most importantly, they did not fear. That last thought struck him the hardest. Humans did not fear, and that was dangerous. He activated his communicator, a low-frequency channel reserved for the sentinels. Only the most trusted could hear. "This is Kalen," he whispered. "Run a covert scan of the human fleet in the nearby sector. Do it without the Emperor knowing. I want data on their deployment, their tactics, their capacity. There is something unusual. A brief pause answered him. Then a calm, emotionless voice replied, Understood, Sentinel Kalen. The scan will begin immediately, but be cautious. Any suspicion of disloyalty is undesirable. Kalen nodded to himself, though no one could see. He knew the risk. The Emperor did not tolerate doubt. Yet the thought of ignoring what he sensed in the humans felt worse than disobedience. He could not turn away. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the humans were unaware of Kalen's attention. Admiral Lyra Oren stood on the bridge of her flagship, overlooking the small fleet. They underestimate us, she repeated, her voice low but steady. The crew had heard her before, but now there was a tension in the air that none could ignore. The humans had prepared for this moment, but every preparation carried a weight. The knowledge that the Emperor's fleets would arrive, believing themselves superior, expecting victory. On the Imperial side, Kalen's scans began to pick up patterns. Human ships were not scattered. They were not chaotic. They were moving in formations that were small enough to hide, large enough to strike effectively. Their fleet signatures were minimal, almost invisible to standard scanners. And yet, the movement was deliberate, tactical, precise. The Obsidian Sentinel frowned. The Emperor had trained him to detect deception, to read patterns in chaos. What he saw now was no chaos. It was purpose, and purpose was dangerous. Later, Kalen walked through the corridors of the Imperial Palace, blending into shadows as he analyzed the data. He passed guards and officials who spoke with reverence of the Emperor, laughing at the idea of humans daring to resist. Their arrogance was comforting to them, but Kalen felt a cold knot of unease. He had seen enough to know that arrogance blinded even the strongest, and he could not ignore it. In a private chamber, he activated a hidden terminal, linking directly to the covert sensors he had deployed near human space. Streams of data filled the screen: fleet movements, colony activity, resource mobilization, drills, weapon calibrations. Every signal told a story. Every pattern hinted at a hidden truth. Humans were preparing, but not for defense alone. They were preparing for something else, something the Emperor had not anticipated. Kalen's thoughts returned to the live feed in the Imperial Hall. The humans had moved with a calm determination, almost as if they had already foreseen the Emperor's actions. He replayed the images again. Ships launching from the orbiting docks, small squads moving in precise formations, the colony's defenses aligning with meticulous timing. Each scene reinforced the conclusion he had already begun to form. Humans were not powerless. They were underestimated. And underestimation was deadly. As Kalen studied the data, a subtle unease spread through him. The Emperor's arrogance was like a storm cloud over the galaxy, and humans were the silent lightning waiting to strike. He knew the risk of speaking out, yet he could not remain silent. Something had to be done. Observation alone would not be enough. He needed proof, evidence that could not be ignored, even by the Emperor. Meanwhile, whispers of the humans' capabilities began to reach other sectors. Small reports, initially dismissed by Imperial officers, started to hint at something unusual. Colonies reporting strange maneuvers, fleets vanishing from standard sensors only to appear in unexpected positions. The Emperor scoffed at these reports, confident that human interference was minimal and inconsequential. But Kalen noticed the pattern. He traced it back to the human fleet, analyzed the formations, and discovered a method in their apparent simplicity. Humans communicated through coded subspace signals, almost impossible to detect with standard Imperial methods. Their fleet movements were synchronized in ways that suggested a higher level of coordination, a level the Emperor had never expected from a species he deemed weak. Late in the Imperial night, Kalen stood alone on a balcony overlooking the city below, lights of the palace casting long shadows over the streets. He whispered to himself, "The Emperor is blind. He cannot see them for what they are. And that blindness will cost us." Back on the human side, Admiral Oren's preparations continued. Her officers moved efficiently, each knowing their role, each understanding the stakes. They were aware of the Emperor's broadcast, of his declaration of their weakness. It had fueled them, sharpened their resolve. Every drill, every maneuver, every calculation was a step toward proving the galaxy wrong. Kalen watched as the human signals indicated readiness. He noticed small details, patterns of ship placement, the timing of weapon calibrations, the alignment of defensive satellites. Each detail added to the growing evidence of human capability. He could no longer deny it. Humans were not just capable. They were dangerous in ways the Emperor had never considered. The tension within Kalen grew. To act now would be treason. To wait might be disaster. Yet the decision felt inevitable. He had to make a choice. He could remain loyal to an emperor blinded by arrogance, or he could prepare for the coming storm, aligning, at least secretly, with the humans he had observed. In the imperial hall, the emperor's laughter echoed once more. "They are children playing at war," he said to his council. "We shall teach them their place." Yet the laughter rang hollow to Kalen. He had seen the truth. The humans were no children. They were not weak. And if the Emperor persisted in underestimating them, the consequences would be catastrophic. That night, Kalen prepared a report. Not for the Emperor, not for the Council, but for himself. A record of what he had observed, what he had calculated, what he had predicted. Humans were moving with precision, with strategy, with intelligence that could topple fleets, outmaneuver armies, and challenge the Empire itself. And somewhere deep within, Kalen knew that soon he would be forced to act. The Emperor's arrogance had blinded him to reality, but Kalen could not ignore it. The humans were coming, whether the Empire was ready or not. As the stars stretched across the galaxy, silent and indifferent, the first real signs of change began to appear. The humans, underestimated and mocked, were preparing. And the Obsidian Sentinel, once loyal without question, had begun to question everything he thought he knew. The Emperor believed humans were powerless. Kalen knew better, and the question now was not whether humans could strike. It was whether the Empire would survive when they did. The galaxy had never seen such confidence in the face of overwhelming power. Emperor Xyler sat on his floating throne, observing the live reports from his fleets. He had planned a demonstration, a swift strike to crush the humans before they could even think of resisting. To him, it would be a show of dominance, a lesson for the entire galaxy. The fleets assembled in the nearby sector were massive, warships the size of small moons, armed with weapons that could level cities with a single shot. Every officer, every pilot, every weapon system was prepared for victory. The Emperor's arrogance was absolute. Humans were powerless. He reminded himself of this with every glance at his holographic display, at every confirmation from his advisors. But Kalen, the Obsidian Sentinel, watched the patterns with a growing unease. Something in the humans' deployment did not fit the Emperor's assumptions. Their fleet was small, yes, almost laughable in comparison, but their movements were deliberate, coordinated, precise. They were hidden in ways that the standard scanners had failed to detect. There was purpose in every action, intelligence in every maneuver. And purpose was dangerous. "Emperor," Kalen said quietly, leaning closer, "the humans, their fleet is not scattered. They are preparing something." The Emperor waved his hand dismissively. "Nonsense, Sentinel. Humans are children playing with ships. Let us move forward. They will break before they even know what hits them." Kalen's gaze hardened. He had seen enough to know better. But he remained silent for now, observing, calculating, waiting for the moment when the Emperor would finally confront reality. In human space, Admiral Lyra Oren's fleet moved like shadows across the starfields. Sensors picked up the massive Imperial fleet, their movements slow but confident, as if they were already victorious. And yet, Oren did not panic. Her eyes were calm, her mind focused. The humans were ready not to defend but to strike. Small squads of human ships detached from the main fleet, disappearing into blind spots and areas the Empire sensors could not reach. Every maneuver was precise. Every ship moved as though connected to a single mind, a hive of strategy and purpose. Even the young cadets, barely trained in combat, followed their orders without hesitation, trusting the calculations and strategies of their commanders. The Imperial fleet advanced, expecting little resistance. Their massive weapons charged, their engines thrummed with power, their confidence unshakable. And then, without warning, the first attack came. A small human strike group emerged from an invisible corridor in space. Missiles fired in perfect synchronization, targeting the Empire's command frigates. Explosions lit the void like fireworks, tearing through shields that the Emperor had believed impenetrable. The council members gasped, some even falling from shock. This was not a minor skirmish. This was a calculated strike, precise and devastating. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Impossible," he muttered. "Humans are powerless. This cannot be." Kalen watched, his suspicions confirmed. The humans were not weak. They were organized, intelligent, and ruthless when necessary. Every strike they executed demonstrated tactical brilliance, exploiting the arrogance of the Empire. One by one, the command ships were disabled, not destroyed, but paralyzed, unable to coordinate the massive fleet. Chaos spread through the Imperial ranks. Ships collided, communication links failed, and fleets that should have been unstoppable moved like confused children. The Emperor's advisors scrambled, shouting orders that could not be followed. Every attack the humans launched seemed to anticipate the Empire's response, countering before it could even be made. And then came the most shocking moment. Human ships emerged from the other side of the Imperial fleet, cutting off retreat paths, surrounding the enemy. Their numbers were small, but their strategy created the illusion of a vast armada. The Emperor's confidence wavered. This was not what he had expected. Kalen felt a surge of something unfamiliar. Was it fear? No, it was awareness. The humans had proven their capability beyond any doubt. Every simulation, every prediction he had made was confirmed in real time. The Empire's arrogance was collapsing under the precision and intelligence of the humans' tactics. The Emperor roared, a sound meant to command obedience, but it trembled with disbelief. "Pull back. Regroup." His voice carried authority, but the humans had already disrupted the formation. Every order met with resistance, every maneuver countered. The Emperor's fleets were no longer in control. They were reacting, scrambling, and failing. In the chaos, Kalen realized something more dangerous than the human strike itself. The Emperor could no longer predict the outcome. His arrogance, which had guided centuries of conquests, had blinded him. And now, the humans, underestimated and mocked, were rewriting the rules of engagement. On the human side, Admiral Oren's calm voice guided her fleet with precision. Maintain formation. Avoid unnecessary risk. Target command nodes first. Neutralize threats efficiently. Her orders were concise, unhesitant, and followed without question. The humans were few, but they operated with the confidence of a species used to surviving against impossible odds. Explosions and energy blasts lit the void as the Imperial fleet struggled to respond. The Emperor's advisors were in panic, their calculations failing to predict the humans' moves. It became clear to all present, even those loyal to the Emperor, that the humans had achieved what many thought impossible. They had turned a hopeless situation into one of tactical dominance. Kalen, standing silently aboard his observation deck, felt the weight of realization settle in. The humans were more than capable. They were dangerous. They were brilliant. And he had witnessed it firsthand. Every move, every strike, every subtle manipulation of space and energy told him the same story. The Emperor had been wrong. The Emperor's fury grew, but it was too late. The humans had already proven that their power was not in numbers or sheer force, but in intelligence, adaptability, and courage. The shockwaves of the unexpected attack rippled across the galaxy, leaving allies and enemies alike stunned. Amid the chaos, Kalen made a decision. Observation was no longer enough. He could not ignore the evidence of the human strength, nor could he blindly serve an emperor whose arrogance threatened to destroy everything. He would act, but not yet. Timing was everything, and the humans were already teaching the galaxy a lesson in patience, precision, and power. As the Imperial fleets regrouped, battered and demoralized, the humans slipped back into the shadows of space, leaving no trace but the echo of destruction and the undeniable proof that they were not powerless. The Emperor stared at the void, disbelief etched on his face. His mouth opened to speak, but no words could capture the reality before him. The humans had struck, and in their strike, they had shattered centuries of assumptions, arrogance, and confidence. Kalen watched silently, understanding that the true story had just begun. Humans had shown what they were capable of, and now the galaxy had no choice but to take notice. The unexpected attack was only the first move, but it had changed everything. The Emperor's arrogance had been confronted with the truth. Humans were neither weak nor powerless. And the Obsidian Sentinel, once loyal without question, now knew that the coming days would demand choices that could alter the fate of the galaxy itself. The stars stretched across the void, silent and indifferent, but within their light, the humans' presence burned brightly, a promise of resistance, strategy, and power that no emperor could ignore. The galaxy had underestimated them once, and that mistake would never be repeated. The Imperial Hall had fallen into a stunned silence. Emperor Xyler sat rigid on his floating throne, his eyes wide with disbelief. The human strike had been precise, devastating, and entirely unexpected. His advisors were in chaos, shouting calculations, trying to regroup, but the humans had already vanished from sight, leaving no trace except shattered ships and crippled command structures. Among the Obsidian Sentinels, Kalen stood silently, his black armor reflecting the flickering lights of the damaged hall. His mind raced. The humans were more than he had imagined, organized, intelligent, fearless. The Emperor's words, his arrogance, had blinded him to a truth that was now undeniable. Humans were not powerless. They were a force to be reckoned with. Kalen remembered the Emperor's earlier decree. Humans are weak, fragile, easily crushed. Those words echoed in his mind, twisted now into irony. The humans had just proven the exact opposite. And in that irony, Kalen felt a stirring of doubt, dangerous, unspoken, and forbidden. He moved away from the crowd, walking through the corridors of the palace, avoiding the eyes of his fellow sentinels. Each step weighed heavily on him. Loyalty had been his life, obedience his code. But the Emperor had been wrong, terribly wrong, and to ignore the truth would be catastrophic not just for the humans but for the Empire itself. In the solitude of a private chamber, Kalen accessed his hidden terminal. Streams of data flowed across the screen, ship movements, battle analyses, human communication patterns. Every piece of information reinforced his growing conviction. The humans were not only capable of fighting the Empire, they were capable of winning. A subtle voice in his mind whispered the impossible thought. What if the humans were right? What if the Emperor's arrogance threatened the very survival of the galaxy? He leaned back, his black cape pooling around him. The decision formed slowly, carefully, like ice forming in a deep lake. He would watch, he would wait, and when the moment was right, he would act. But he could no longer stand by blindly. Something had to change. Meanwhile, in human space, Admiral Lyra Oren observed the results of their strike. Her fleet remained in shadow, hidden from the Empire's sensors. Yet she knew the impact had been devastating. The humans had struck with precision, but their true goal was larger than destruction. It was to send a message. A message that humans could not be dismissed, that their strength was real, and that underestimation of their resolve would have consequences no empire could afford to ignore. Back in the Imperial Hall, Emperor Xyler's fury grew. "They are children playing at war," he shouted, his voice cutting through the stunned silence. "And yet they have outmaneuvered us. This is unacceptable." His words were meant to inspire obedience, but the cracks in his authority were beginning to show. The advisors whispered among themselves, fearful but curious. Even the most loyal officers wondered if perhaps the humans were different than they had been told. Kalen observed all of this silently. He had seen the fear, the surprise, the cracks in the Emperor's confidence. He had also seen the humans' intelligence, their discipline, and their courage. And now, for the first time in centuries, he questioned his own loyalty. Later, in the quiet of the observation deck, Kalen transmitted a covert signal, encrypted and hidden from the Emperor's sensors. It was a simple message, but one that carried enormous weight. "I am watching. I see the truth. Humans are capable. Prepare for a shift. No immediate reply came, and Kalen did not expect one. The message was not meant for communication. It was a record, a preparation for action. If the humans were truly as dangerous as they appeared, he would need allies within the Empire. Allies who were capable of understanding the threat and acting before it was too late. The next days brought further reports from scouts and subspace sensors. The humans were mobilizing. Small strike units moved in silence, testing Imperial responses, probing weaknesses, and gathering intelligence. Every movement was calculated, every action measured. It was not chaos, it was strategy, and it confirmed Kalen's growing suspicion. The humans were not just fighting, they were preparing for something greater. In a private chamber, Kalen reviewed the battle reports again. Each image of the destroyed Imperial frigates, each detail of the humans' movements, was a lesson. The humans did not rely on overwhelming numbers or brute force. They relied on cunning, coordination, and adaptability, the traits that the Emperor had long dismissed as insignificant. Kalen's thoughts turned inward. Could he act? Could he defy the Emperor, even secretly, to align with a species he had never truly known? The risk was enormous. Discovery would mean execution not just for him but for anyone who aided him. Yet inaction seemed even more dangerous. The humans' potential had been revealed, and the Emperor's arrogance left the Empire vulnerable. That night, Kalen observed the Emperor in private meditation. The ruler's arrogance was still intact, yet a subtle tension lingered in his posture, a recognition of the unexpected strike. He had underestimated the humans, and in underestimating them, he had shown vulnerability. Kalen knew that vulnerability would not last long. The Emperor would attempt to regain control, to crush any hint of rebellion or doubt. The question was simple. Would Kalen act first, or would he wait for the humans to make the next move? Meanwhile, the humans continued their quiet preparations. Colonies synchronized defenses, fleets calibrated weapons, and every human officer understood the stakes. They did not fear the Emperor, nor did they underestimate his power. But they had learned one important lesson. The galaxy believed them weak. And in that belief lay their greatest advantage. Kalen studied the patterns again. The humans' movements suggested a plan, a strategy far beyond what the Emperor anticipated. And for the first time, Kalen felt a strange sense of hope. Perhaps loyalty did not mean blind obedience. Perhaps courage and intelligence could coexist with honor, even in the service of those who had once dismissed him. In the shadows of the palace, Kalen made a silent vow. When the time came, he would act. Not for the Emperor, not for power, but for truth. The humans had proven that they were capable. And in proving that, they had awakened something in him that could not be ignored. The following day, Kalen walked among the Emperor's council in the Imperial Hall. Their conversations revolved around damage control, fleet repair, and strategic reassessment. The Emperor remained furious, shouting orders, insisting on immediate retaliation. Yet Kalen remained calm, observing, waiting. He understood the Emperor's mind, his tactics, and, most importantly, his blind spots. As the council debated, Kalen's mind mapped the possibilities. The humans were patient. The Emperor was impulsive. The next strike would be decisive. And Kalen knew that when it came, he could not remain a passive observer. He had seen the truth. He understood the humans' power. And he knew the Emperor's arrogance would lead to disaster if unchecked. That evening, Kalen transmitted another covert message, encrypted and hidden in the Empire's communication streams. Observation complete. Humans are a real threat. Plan for action when opportunity arises. Loyalty is now conditional on truth. It was a dangerous step, one that could mark him as a traitor if discovered. Yet Kalen felt no fear. The humans had proven their capability, and now it was his responsibility to prepare for the coming storm. The question of allegiance had shifted. Loyalty to the Emperor could no longer blind him to reality. Across the galaxy, stars glimmered quietly, indifferent to the unfolding drama. But within that vast expanse, humans readied themselves, the Obsidian Sentinel prepared, and the Emperor's arrogance threatened to consume him. The stage was set. Betrayal and revelation intertwined, and the next moves would determine the fate of the galaxy itself. The Emperor believed he controlled everything. The humans believed they could strike with precision. And Kalen, caught between loyalty and truth, knew that the coming days would force choices that no one could predict. The galaxy waited, silent, while the pieces moved into place. And somewhere deep in the void, the humans' next strike began to take shape, quiet, calculated, unstoppable, and the Obsidian Sentinel watched, ready to act when the moment came. The void of space was silent, almost deceptively calm. From the Emperor's throne, Xyler observed the stars, convinced that the humans were still scattered, harmless, and insignificant. The first strike had surprised him, yes, but he believed it was nothing more than a minor annoyance, a warning shot that proved nothing. His fleets were massive, unstoppable, armed with weapons that could crush worlds. Humanity, he thought, was powerless. But Kalen knew better. The Obsidian Sentinel had studied the humans' movements, analyzed their strategies, and observed the quiet precision in their fleet. He had seen how each ship, each maneuver, each decision was calculated to exploit weaknesses. The Emperor's arrogance blinded him, but Kalen's eyes were open. "Emperor," Kalen said quietly, stepping forward, "they are preparing again. This time it will not be a minor strike. They have learned, adapted, and they are ready to act in full force." The Emperor laughed, a harsh, commanding sound meant to inspire obedience. "Do not exaggerate, Sentinel. They are children playing with fire. My fleets will consume them." Kalen said nothing. Words were not enough. He had seen what they were capable of, and he knew that the time had come to choose, either continue blind loyalty or act on what he now understood. Far in human space, Admiral Lyra Oren watched the Imperial fleets shift nervously. Her fingers moved over the control panels, adjusting formations, calibrating weapons, and preparing the timing of their next strike. The humans were few, but they were disciplined. They were fearless. They were ready. "Maintain stealth," she commanded. "Keep their attention on the front lines. The real strike will come from the shadows." The human fleet moved like shadows across the starfields. Small strike groups flanked, harried, and distracted the Imperial forces, drawing attention away from the true threat. Every human ship moved as though connected to a single mind, the coordination flawless, the timing precise. Kalen monitored the Imperial command channels. Officers were panicked, orders overlapping, communications scrambled. The humans had done something remarkable. They had disrupted the Emperor's ability to control his own fleets. Chaos spread, and the Emperor's confidence began to crumble. The moment came. Kalen gave the subtle signal he had prepared in secret. Within the Imperial ranks, a small faction of loyal sentinels moved quietly, aligning with the hidden humans. They would not betray the Empire entirely. They would act strategically, ensuring that the human strike would succeed while minimizing unnecessary loss. But the Emperor would not see it coming. Human ships emerged from concealed positions, striking with precision. Energy beams lanced through the void, targeting weapon systems, engines, and command nodes. Explosions tore through the Imperial ships, lighting the darkness of space with a fiery brilliance. Imperial fleets tried to respond, but the humans had anticipated every move. Every defensive measure, every counterattack was met with cunning, efficiency, and deadly accuracy. Emperor Xyler's eyes widened in disbelief. "Impossible," he roared. "They cannot. This is beyond their capability." Kalen watched silently, emotionless on the surface but burning with internal clarity. The humans were not just surviving, they were dominating. Their strategy was flawless, their coordination unmatched. They moved as one, striking with precision, adapting to every Imperial counter. And within the chaos, Kalen knew that the Empire's arrogance had created the perfect opening. The battle raged across the sector. Human ships, though smaller and fewer in number, crippled the Imperial fleet systematically. Command frigates were paralyzed, weapon systems disabled, engines shredded. Every strike demonstrated human ingenuity, turning what should have been an overwhelming defeat into a stunning victory. Kalen himself acted decisively. He guided a squad of Obsidian Sentinels, neutralizing key threats within the Imperial fleet. Their loyalty to the Emperor remained in name, but their actions now favored the humans. It was a delicate balance, one that required precision, timing, and absolute trust in the humans' abilities. From her flagship, Admiral Oren observed the unfolding chaos. "Kalen is helping," she noted quietly, a faint smile on her lips. "We are not alone in this fight, but we must move quickly. The Emperor will recover if we delay." The humans intensified their attacks. Their weapons were small but deadly, their maneuvers bold yet calculated. Imperial ships, once confident in their superiority, now scattered like prey caught in a predator's trap. Explosions and firestorms lit the void as the Emperor's arrogance gave way to desperation. Xyler screamed orders demanding regroup, counterattack, anything to regain control. But the humans had already anticipated his moves. Every attempt to regain the upper hand failed. Every strike from the humans demonstrated their mastery of strategy, precision, and adaptation. Kalen, moving among the chaos, felt a strange satisfaction. He had chosen the path of truth over blind loyalty. He had seen the human strength, and now, as their combined strike unfolded, he understood the power of underestimation. The Emperor had mocked humans, but mocking them had been his greatest mistake. The battle reached a critical moment. The human fleet, with Kalen's secret guidance, concentrated on the Emperor's command ships. Explosions tore through the hulls, energy shields faltered, and command systems went dark. The Emperor's throne floated in the center of the chaos, but even he could not escape the realization. His authority was collapsing. And then came the final blow. A coordinated strike hit the Emperor's flagship, disabling engines, weapon systems, and communications simultaneously. The Emperor staggered in his throne, fury and disbelief warring in his eyes. How can this be?" he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. Kalen stood nearby, his face unreadable. The humans had proven what he had known all along. They were not powerless. They were clever, resilient, and deadly. They had taken the Emperor's arrogance and shattered it. The Emperor's advisors and generals fell into silence. Their confidence destroyed, their strategy defeated, their belief in invincibility undone. The humans had unleashed a force that no one could have anticipated, and the galaxy now understood that their power was real. Admiral Oren's voice rang calm and decisive over the human fleet's channels. "Hold positions. Assess damage. Prepare for the next phase. The Emperor's arrogance is broken, but the fight is not over." Kalen watched her words, understanding their significance. The humans had not come for glory. They had come to assert their presence, to demonstrate that underestimation was dangerous, and to shift the balance of power in the galaxy. And he, once a loyal servant of the Emperor, had played a part in that transformation. In the Emperor's throne room, Xyler's fury was matched only by his shock. The humans had done the impossible. His arrogance, his certainty, had been shattered by beings he had considered weak, fragile, and powerless. The galaxy had witnessed it all, and the message was clear. Humans could not be ignored, mocked, or underestimated. Kalen felt a strange calm as the battle wound down. The humans had proven themselves. The Emperor's power had been shaken, and the next moves of the humans and of the Obsidian Sentinel would shape the galaxy for years to come. For the first time in centuries, a single thought held true in Kalen's mind. Humans were not powerless. They were brilliant, they were fearless, and they had unleashed a force the galaxy would never forget. The void of space stretched silent once more, but the echoes of the battle lingered. The Emperor's arrogance had been defeated. The humans had shown their true power. And Kalen, standing in the shadows of the Emperor's empire, understood that the future had changed forever. The stars were quiet witnesses to the change that had swept across the galaxy. Emperor Xyler's flagship floated in orbit, crippled and powerless. The once great fleets of the Empire, massive and feared, were scattered, damaged, and confused. The humans had struck with precision, intelligence, and courage, shattering centuries of arrogance in one decisive campaign. In the imperial hall, silence reigned. Advisors and generals who had once laughed at the idea of human capability now stared in disbelief. Some whispered, trying to understand how a species they had dismissed could achieve such dominance. Others simply shook their heads, unable to reconcile the Emperor's fall with their own understanding of power. Kalen, the Obsidian Sentinel, walked among them silently. His armor reflected the dim light of the hall, but his eyes were sharp, observing, calculating. He had acted decisively, guiding the human strike while maintaining the facade of loyalty. It had been dangerous, perhaps treasonous in the eyes of the Empire, but Kalen had seen the truth, and that truth had been undeniable. Humans were not weak. Humans were powerful, intelligent, and fearless. The Emperor sat on his damaged throne. His once imposing presence diminished. Fury burned in his eyes, but he could not hide the disbelief that had taken root. "Impossible," he whispered, voice shaking. How could they?" Kalen stepped forward, silent and measured. "Your arrogance blinded you," he said quietly, but firmly. "You underestimated them. That mistake has cost the Empire dearly." The Emperor's eyes snapped to him, a mix of rage and fear. You dare." Kalen raised a hand slightly, not in aggression, but in warning. "I am not here to fight you. I am here to show you the truth. Humans are not powerless. They are a force the galaxy must respect, or it will fall into chaos." Far above the Emperor's palace, human fleets maintained orbital control. Admiral Lyra Oren's flagship hovered in quiet dominance, sensors scanning for threats, crew ready for any move. Their strategy had been flawless. The humans had shown that intelligence, coordination, and courage could overcome even the most massive forces. They had proven that underestimation was the gravest mistake an empire could make. On the Emperor's command bridge, generals whispered among themselves. Fear etched on every face. The humans had struck swiftly and precisely, paralyzing command structures, disabling weapon systems, and turning the Emperor's own arrogance into their advantage. Imperial soldiers had fought bravely, but they were overwhelmed by strategy they could not predict. Kalen guided the remaining Obsidian Sentinels quietly, ensuring that no further Imperial resistance could rise to challenge the humans' control. His actions were subtle but decisive. He understood the balance of power, and he knew the humans would need order, not chaos, to secure their victory. In the aftermath, Admiral Oren addressed her fleet. Her voice was calm, resolute, and filled with quiet authority. "The Emperor's fleets are crippled. The Empire is weakened, but not yet defeated. We must secure key systems, protect colonies, and establish order. The galaxy has seen what we can do. Now we must ensure that power is used wisely." Her crew listened, inspired by her leadership and their own achievements. The humans had done the impossible. They had struck down the Emperor's arrogance, shattered the myth of their weakness, and reshaped the galaxy's understanding of power. But they also knew that victory brought responsibility. Back in the Imperial Hall, Xyler sat in silence, the weight of defeat pressing down on him. For the first time, he felt powerless, not from strength or skill, but from his own mistakes. The humans had exploited what he had ignored. Their intelligence, their coordination, their courage, and above all, his own arrogance. Kalen approached him again. "You have a choice," he said. "You can continue to cling to pride, or you can acknowledge the new order and survive. Humanity will not destroy without reason, but it will act decisively against threats." The Emperor's lips pressed into a thin line. He had always believed that fear and power could command loyalty and obedience. Now he faced a reality where strength came from more than size or firepower. It came from strategy, courage, and intelligence. The humans had redefined strength. On distant worlds, human colonies celebrated quietly. Messages of triumph and relief echoed through communication channels. Humanity had not only survived, they had asserted themselves, showing the galaxy that underestimation was dangerous, that power was not measured by arrogance, and that the human spirit could not be crushed. Kalen observed it all, aware of the delicate balance he now maintained. The Emperor's authority was broken, Yet he remained alive, a warning to all who might underestimate humanity again. The Obsidian Sentinel understood that alliances, intelligence, and trust were now as important as weapons. The galaxy had entered a new era, and humans were at the forefront. Admiral Oren's voice rang again over the fleet's channels. "We move forward carefully. Secure systems. Protect the innocent. And remember this, humanity has shown its strength, but the work is not done. The galaxy will watch, and we must act with wisdom and resolve." The Emperor's fleets, scattered and crippled, began a slow retreat. Their soldiers were alive, but shaken. Their commanders had seen firsthand the humans' ability to plan, coordinate, and strike with precision. The myths of human weakness had been shattered, and now the galaxy faced a species that demanded respect, not ridicule. Kalen stood in silent reflection. He had acted carefully, balancing loyalty, survival, and truth. The humans had proven their power, and he had chosen to support that revelation. The Emperor's arrogance had blinded him, and the cost had been immense. But now the galaxy had a new order, one in which humans held undeniable influence. The stars stretched endlessly, indifferent yet witness to the shift in power. Humanity had unleashed its potential, and the consequences rippled through every system, every fleet, and every council that had once mocked them. The galaxy would never be the same. In the shadows, Kalen made a final note, a silent record of the truth. Loyalty must always be measured against knowledge. Courage, intelligence, and foresight were more valuable than obedience alone. Humanity had shown that, and for the first time in centuries, the Obsidian Sentinel felt a quiet certainty. The galaxy had changed, and it would never underestimate humans again. Admiral Oren's fleet moved quietly through space, securing control, protecting colonies, and preparing for whatever came next. The humans had proven themselves, yes, but more importantly, they had demonstrated a principle that would guide the galaxy for generations. Strength was not in size, but in intelligence, courage, and unity. And somewhere, in the remnants of the Emperor's shattered empire, whispers began to spread. Stories of human brilliance, of the Obsidian Sentinel's secret guidance, and of the decisive victories that had rewritten the rules of the galaxy. The Emperor had declared humans powerless. He had been wrong. The galaxy now knew the truth. The new order had begun, silent but undeniable. Humanity had risen. The Emperor had fallen. And the stars, indifferent yet eternal, now bore witness to a galaxy transformed.